If something bad is happening, someone wants it that way. In my last show, I was talking about how important it is for us to have idealized futures, because one of the beautiful things that idealized futures does is that it creates a vision, a product, an exceptional idea that can then infect individuals, and at the point that the resources become available for these things to be created, then someone can go ahead and create it. They may not create it exactly the same way as it was envisioned initially, but they can eventually create this thing. And that's why I think it's very important for us to develop optimistic visions of the future, utopian visions of the future. Because the more utopian visions of the future we have, the more it will infect us and future generations to be able to build that utopian vision. But some of you might say, what are you talking about, Chris? Things are getting worse. They're not getting better. And in some ways, I would agree with you. In other ways, quantitatively, things are actually getting better. And there's plenty of evidence to that effect. In fact, if you read some of the works of Steven Pinker, you will realize that, wait a second, we've been given a crock. When you look at the news, so many horrible things are happening. But the reality is, folks, and remember, the reason why it's called the news is because it hardly ever happens. Not because it happens all the time, because if it happened all the time, it wouldn't be news. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make here is that, yes, it may appear that things are getting worse. However, underneath it all, things are getting better. Now, in some areas, things are getting worse, and things are bad, and they're getting worse. And you probably think to yourself, well, if things are bad and they're getting worse, why are things bad? And why are things getting worse? Because generally, if you look at the overall state of humanity, things are actually better. Technology is better, poverty is better, health is better. There's so many things that are happening around the world that are better. So quantitatively, things are better. But in certain specific areas, things are bad and getting worse. And you have to think to yourself, why is that? Well, I'll tell you a little story and I'll give you an example. So I was working for a company once, and I had a coworker who was horrible. She was terrible. She was very pushy. She was antagonistic. She was terrible in meetings. Everybody else was trying to get along, and this coworker was terrible. She was just a horrible person to get along with. And I thought to myself, this person is a horrible person. And this person not only was a horrible person, they kept getting promoted and promoted within the organization. They kept going up and up in the organization. And I thought to myself, why is this horrible person who nobody wants to work with continuing to get pushed up in the organization? Why are they being rewarded for being a horrible person? And many of you out there probably have seen things like this. You've probably worked in organizations where you come across individuals where there's this one person and they're a terrible person, and they're a terrible employee, and they're terrible to their coworkers, and they're terrible to everybody. And you think to yourself, why is this person still working here? If this person is such a horrible person, why are they still employed here? And it dawned on me that there must be some reason why this individual is still here. And probably, more than likely, somebody at some point in the organization looked at this individual and said, we need this person here to do X. We need them for a specific task. We need them, I don't know, to fire people or something. So whenever you see, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe this applies broadly across the board for everything, is that whenever you see something going wrong, whenever you see some injustice, whenever you see something going bad, even though things are going well for the human race quantitatively across the board, then you have to think to yourself, what is going on here? Why can't this get better? What is the problem here? And I wouldn't be surprised if you looked into it deeply and found that someone somewhere is actually benefiting from things being the way they are. I'll give you a couple of other examples. We have problems with homelessness in the Bay Area. We have San Francisco, New York are being inundated with migrants. We have people sleeping on the streets. LA looks like a war zone, like a third world country. And we have all of these people displaced. So you're thinking to yourself, why would a city manager want to have thousands of homeless on the streets? Why would we want to do what we're doing with migrants all over across the country? Why are these things happening? Why are people being displaced, dispossessed, and living on the street? Well, look at it. Look at it deeply and go, sure, there's a problem here. But someone somewhere, and there are solutions. There are many solutions for homelessness. There are many solutions for poverty. There are many solutions that are out there. But for some reason, these solutions are not being applied. Why are these solutions not being applied? I'll tell you why. Because someone, somewhere, in power, likes things exactly the way they are. Someone's getting paid off. There's some kind of corruption somewhere. Somewhere, we can remove the barriers to solve this problem. But someone is being remunerated too well and likes things exactly the way they are for them to be able to change these things to make things better. So I wouldn't be surprised, and you can test this yourself. Look at some moment or some point or some particular data point of injustice against the human race, against humanity, and look at it and go, why is this horrible thing happening? We have the technology. We have the wealth. We are able to solve all of these problems. But somebody somewhere is benefiting from things being exactly the way they are. And if we can find those people who are benefiting from things being bad and either remove them from that position or eliminate their power in that situation, then we'll see things starting to move. Because there's no shortage of human beings wanting to solve the big problems of the world. We just need to remove those individuals or get them out of the way so that the problems can be solved. That's why I'm saying, whenever you see something like this, more than likely somebody somewhere is getting enumerated or is making out like bandits to leave things exactly the way they are. And that's why we need to find those people and we need to take them out of the loop so that we can solve the big problems of humanity. That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.